which it is. And the reason for doing that, as all the old hands to UK Export Academy will know, is you will, by close of play today, receive an email. That email will have a link to the recording of this session, and it will also have a link to the slides that are used. So please look out for that. If this is maybe one of your sort of early first, second session with UK Export Academy, just check your spam or junk file, because sometimes the first emails, second emails, sometimes will go in there and get lost. So if you've not received it, just have a route around. We are going to have questions today, and let's face it, that's one of the main reasons for people coming along to our sessions. You actually get to ask questions of the presenter, so you get it from the horse's mouth. And I would absolutely urge anybody on here today in the live session to ask any questions. Don't worry, there's no such thing as a silly question, only silly answers. I guarantee you won't get any silly answers today. So you got a question, you got a query, you're unsure about something, Allyson is there. Please ask her, and we will go through those. Now, Alyson's going to look to finish about 22, quarter to. So that is going to give us a good 15 plus minutes to answer those questions. If you would rather ask your question verbally, not a problem. We'll go to a hands raised scenario, and I will come to you in order, and you'll get to ask your question of Allyson on open mic. At the moment, all the mics are closed, all the cameras are closed. So, but I will open it in order that you can ask your questions. Finally, and I know everybody asks for these days, feedback. We do have a feedback survey, because we love to hear what you think of our sessions, because it helps us to sort of build future sessions. It helps us to tinker. It helps us to make sure that what we are delivering is pertinent to what you are expecting and requiring. I've not put the feedback survey up yet. I will open chat at the end, and the feedback survey will be in there. And please, if you can take 30 seconds, that's all it is, tick a few boxes. It would be very much appreciated. Now, enough from me, because you've not come to listen to me. Allyson, I am going to invite you on screen and tell you the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Robin, thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for giving up your time today to learn a bit more about how you might build profitable business relationships with your U.S. counterparts. And so just a little about my background and why I might know little about this topic. So as the founder of a consulting firm, International Marketing Partners, I spend my time really helping companies like yours to think through, how do we internationalize into the United States? What do we need to localize? What do we need to keep the same? What about our value proposition needs to be adjusted or maybe altogether different for the US market? So I'm originally from LA. I've been in London for many decades now. My background is strategy consulting. I have an office in central London, but help companies across the UK and across various industry sectors as well. I'm also the author of a book called Working with Americans. And at the back end of today, you will see that my publisher has very kindly created a discount code for any Department for Business and Trade attendee of a webinar or my webinars. So hopefully that might be interesting if I've whet your appetite to want to know more about this topic. I'm also a regular broadcaster on U.S. business stories, so BBC, Sky News, France 24, and several other outlets. So you can always keep track of me there. And of course, you can keep in touch with me via LinkedIn or X or my own company's website. So those details are also in the slides, which you'll be receiving after today. So really, there's a few key things I'm hoping to achieve in the brief time we have together. They're all equally important, so they're not listed by priority order. But I think the key thing for me is to make you feel more comfortable and confident in growing your business or organization in the United States. Understanding more about what Americans, what are the rules of the game of American business, and basically making you an even better negotiator or communicator or even influencer with your American counterparts. So that's really the overarching goal of our webinar today. And so because of that, there's really a few key things I'm going to go over. One is about giving you the vocabulary to describe a business culture, because we know that a lot of it is about, there are differences, but maybe putting your finger on exactly what those are may be tricky. So I'm going to introduce a framework that I think you'll find helpful. I'm then going to quickly recap some of the rules of the game. So as we mention in our Working with Americans book, if you get the rules of the game and you get the culture, then everything else makes sense and everything else really falls into place. And you're even clearer about what adaptations you would need to make for your service or your product as you grow it in the States. And then quickly recapping some top 10 tips and a few likely scenarios that you're going to encounter as you negotiate and influence and communicate with your counterparts. So it's quite a packed agenda. But I'm going to start with a quote from my MBA professor, Peter Drucker. And he's credited with saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if you understand the culture, then everything else will work and align under it or around it or beside it. And it's absolutely true that if you have a great strategy, but if it isn't in sync with the culture of the country, in this case the US, then your strategy can never be brought to life. So investing in understanding the culture is absolutely critical. And if you look at the statistics about mergers and acquisitions, McKinsey, the consulting firm, published a stat a few years ago that suggested 72% of all mergers and acquisitions unraveled due to cultural factors. Not because it's not a good business case, but because culturally the organizations don't fit, the country cultures of the companies don't mesh. They haven't really made adjustments for that. So it's very, very important, and it's also expensive if it's not understood well. The other thing to mention about culture is this model of an iceberg, and I suspect some of you will have seen this before. But what it basically is saying is that when we go to another place, in this instance, we're talking about the US, you see a lot of things superficially above the waterline, how people dress, how they get to work, what newspapers they read, what sports teams they support, what they think of geopolitics these days. So all of that is superficial, and that's easy. The stuff below the waterline, though, to really understand the US and the mindset, you really have to spend some time there and you have to immerse. And there aren't any shortcuts. I mean, I wish I could say, after today, that's it, you're an expert. But it takes time and it takes investment, and you have to spend time in the US and understand the place and know how things work, how your industry is structured, how intense competition is, what your customers or clients do if they don't buy your product or service, what substitutes do they use. So understanding the market forces and understanding the assumptions, the rules of the game of business in the US is only going to happen by an investment of time on your side. And I'm glad you're here today because you're showing already that you're interested and invested. So that's a really great start. So just to remind you also of the scale of the United States. So as a Californian, I'm very proud to say that California, just in the last sort of 6 weeks, has been reassessed as the fourth largest world economy. And that's just one of the 50 US states. So just it gives you a sense of perspective. It also has roughly the same GDP as the United Kingdom, with a population of about 48 million. So you're starting to see in this 2020 analysis done by the IMF and the Bureau of Economic Analysis that many states are themselves the size of countries. I mean, Texas, at least in 2020, had the economy the size of Italy. So what this should also help you realize is focusing is key. Unless you have, trillions of dollars to spend on your pounds, to spend on your US expansion, which I don't know of any company that does. The goal of this game is being super focused on geography, or where your customer or clients are. And typically, that's a really great place to start. But thinking that you can sort of conquer the entire United States, all 50 states, which spans 8 hours between here, here in continental US, here in California is 8 hours behind, Hawaii is 11 hours behind. So it's quite a massive place. So having your priorities set, both geographically, but also in terms of the market you want to serve, is really the route to success. So let's get into the first part, which is giving you some ideas for how you describe the American business culture and your own here in the UK. This is a model from a company called Country Navigator, and it's published by TMA, and they developed this model for cross-cultural negotiations. And so basically what's good about this model is it's quite user-friendly. The language is user-friendly. It isn't academic, geeky, inaccessible wording. And these 18 words, I think, do you quite a good service in giving you a construct for describing not only the British UK business culture, but the American as well. So they have a database of, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of respondents now, people like all of us on this call who will have paid I don't know, 20, 25 pounds, maybe something around that, to take their online diagnostic. 10, 15 minutes later, you get a profile of your preferred way of working. And you can compare your preferences on these 9 dimensions to the preferences of any of 100 plus countries in their database. So this is a snapshot of the respondents in the database who say that they are from the UK. And therefore, it's business respondents, by the way, rather than just anyone. It's business people. And so this is the profile of business people who say, yes, I'm from the UK. And these are their preferences around relating, regulating, and reasoning. So relating is probably pretty straightforward, how to build rapport, how to sort of build relationships with other people. Regulating is about rules, and reasoning is obviously about how you present facts, data, logic. And so if I very briefly run you through these, task is focusing on the immediate issue at hand. Relationship is focusing first on building a rapport before getting down to business. Explicit communication, I think we know what that is. Implicit is the opposite. So we're all a blend, by the way, of all of these. So no one is in the extreme at the expense of the other. The issue or the point is, what kind of blend are you? And what kind of blend is your target country? In a moment, I'll show you the United States profile. Individual and group is where you ascribe credit. So individual means you make sure each member of the team is recognized and rewarded for their contribution to the effort. Group means that the hierarchy and loyalty is first to the team or the organization or the country, and then to the individual members of the group. So then under rules or regulating, you have risk-taking or not. You have time, controlling time, tight control, loose control of time. In other words, honoring schedules and meetings, meeting obligations and deadlines. Shared and concentrated is about decision-making and how that happens. Shared meaning highly consultative decision-making, where everyone's vote is equal regardless of hierarchy or status. And concentrated means only a few people are allowed to make decisions, even though others might be consulted. Ultimately, they don't get to decide. And then the final 3 under reasoning. So linear means presenting information along a timeline as a build. Circular means presenting information as it comes to mind, not necessarily along a time horizon. Facts means starting with data and extracting a theory based on the data. Thinking meaning you start your explanations with the theory and show that the data fits the theory. So it's which end of the telescope, where do you start? And the last one is about appetite for context. Simple meaning I don't really need the backstory or the background information. All I need is the foreground or a picture of today. Complex means I do need the backstory and the context to inform where we are today. So the appetite for that information varies highly across cultures. So these are the preferences in the database for the UK. These are the preferences for the US. Big difference, and yet we supposedly speak the same language. Well, actually, we don't speak the same language. US English is a very different language to the UK. It's low context, it's direct, it's not implicit. And while the words may seem similar most of the time, the actual language is fundamentally very different. And I think the advice I find myself giving clients is you probably ought to treat the US like you treat your Chinese market, that it is that different. And that often gets companies in the UK tripped up by assuming that we're very, very similar when actually we're very, very different. So I'm sure that was probably surprising. What I'm going to ask you to do after today is go back to this particular slide and maybe think about a U.S. colleague that you negotiate with or speak to often or are trying to improve a relationship with, and maybe think about what their preferences might be versus what your own preferences might be and how they match or not the U.S. profile, and sort of where you think your preferences are. And then you can think about, well, what might you do to bridge the gaps? Could you focus more on the task at hand? Could you make sure that you keep your meetings to time, knowing that American meetings now are 30 minutes, not an hour by default? And other things that you might want to adjust. So what I've done here is provided you with a little worksheet for you to make your notations about your preferences and your counterparts' preferences. And hopefully that'll prove a useful exercise. You may want to also do that with your team here, who are also working with you on your US expansion. So let me cover now a few rules of the game and some of the underlying values that at that 10,000 meter level, we in the US generally adhere to. I'm often asked, well, aren't there regional differences? So, if you think about the US, generally we have 5 regions: Northwest, Southwest, Midwest, Northeast, and Southeast. And yes, there are regional differences that are often around style or pace, but fundamentally, the underlying values are consistent across the country, across all 50 states. And so in no particular order, these are some of the things that really matter to Americans in terms of business. So we still believe that everyone has a shot at greatness. You can come from humble beginnings and become a billionaire. And we have a lot of evidence of people who have done that in the US. We also structure our game theory on win-win and making sure everybody feels that they've got something useful and valuable out of our negotiations. But you can only really operate win-win in an economy of abundance. And the reason for that is because in an economy of abundance, which America is, or the US is, you're not really conscious of shortages. So in your negotiations, if you're concerned about constraints from the outset, then that definitely shapes the negotiations and the strategies. And you will try to equalize and make sure no one person in these negotiations wins more than other people. But if there are no constraints and there's enough for everyone to go around, then you can structure it on win-win, where everybody gets something and no one feels that they've had to give up in a zero-sum scenario, give anything up for other people to win. So that's really important to bear in mind. We also are fundamentally Darwinian in our national religion, I would say. So if you are evolving and you have something new that is not already in the US market, we're super interested. And your ability to kind of accentuate and turn up the volume on what about your service or product is new to the American market and not already there, we will definitely be all ears. So that I would highly recommend you not only discover what it is about your product or service that's better or different than what's in the US, but you need to tell everyone about it very loudly. Anything is possible. That's another core belief of ours in life in general, but also in business. You see all sorts of examples of people that have tried things and by accident or by design have created hugely successful businesses. So very much linked in a way to the equality of opportunity perception. We can try anything and make it work. We also see information as a free resource. So Google, all of the search engines, all the AI platforms now, Open AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, all of these platforms are not surprisingly American. And that's because we fundamentally believe that sharing information is a right. And so if you're asked a lot of questions by Americans, it isn't because they doubt you or they are, undermining you. It's actually because they're truly interested. So it comes from an appetite for learning and wanting to know how your business works and how you work in the US. We're also very action oriented. So ready, fire, aim is the modus operandi, I would say, for most of us in the US. We're quick to act. We are fearful that we'll miss out if we don't take action. And we're not big on reflection. We're not big on getting our products or services to 99% market readiness. We typically go to market with products and services that are only 70 something percent ready. And we learn as we go. And if we make mistakes and we mess up a customer or a client's business or somehow, get it wrong, we will apologize. We will give them some money for the mistake. But we also have learned a lot in that process. So the need for speed is extremely important in the US, hence the action orientation. And we're also fairly insular. There's an assumption, for the most part, that how things work in America is how they work everywhere else. There's many reasons for that view. Part of it is about the news that we get about the world, which isn't huge. Part of it is about our extensive travel or lack of it. We only get a couple of weeks a year of vacation, generally speaking. So we don't get much time to explore the planet and other countries and other cultures. And so that assumption you will no doubt encounter, I suspect, if you haven't already. And it comes from not knowing rather than knowing. It does not come from arrogance. It comes from actually not really knowing. So other rules of the game, the concept of retirement. I mean, Americans are now working into their 70s and beyond, partly to do with Social Security and the need for the money, but partly because mentally they like what they do. We have vocations, our callings. And so a lot of Americans now work well beyond when you'd expect most people would retire, mid 60s, definitely not. There's no correlation seen in the US between age and experience. You can have someone in their 30s who knows a lot and will be given the same amount of credibility as someone much older. We're very time conscious. We use time to measure success. It's a really important metric. We have very low job security. So because of our employment laws in the US, which are mostly employment at will, People can be let go and made redundant very quickly and very easily and cheaply. And so staff churn in American organizations is quite high because of that. So it's quite transactional rather than relationship in terms of how employment works in the US. And then, whistleblowing, increasingly, we're seeing many organizations having people report their misdeeds and ethical lapses. And that is a growing trend now that maybe wasn't so robust 10, 15 years ago. So, I'll highlight a couple of points here. I'm conscious of time. Rules of the game around who the boss is. Decision making can be slow, it can be consultative, it can be democratic, but it also could be not as brave, you could say, as here in the UK. People are afraid maybe to take decisions where there's a high risk associated with it, also because of the lack of job security. So those things are quite correlated. One of the things, however, we do believe in are the power of teams. So American companies spend a lot of money on team building, ensuring there's team alignment and cohesion. So that's a practice that if you haven't encountered it yet, and you are part of a U.S. team, or you might be part of a U.S. team, that is something that we believe very strongly in. We're celebratory. We encourage people to take risks. So you saw on the Country Navigator that we are not risk avoiding, but we are definitely risk taking. And we encourage people to, take calculated risks, not reckless, but certainly calculated. We also, in terms of team motivation and feedback, generally we're a high feedback culture in the US. We're especially high feedback when it's positive news. So if you've done a great job, we'll tell you in front of as many people as possible, you've done a great job. If you've not done a great job, we hopefully will tell you privately, and we'll frame it as an opportunity to be even better next time. So we are very wary about denting people's confidence and motivation in the process. We're highly litigious. So my advice is if you are taking intellectual property to the US, make sure before you do that you've talked to a lawyer in the US or an American qualified lawyer here in the UK, and there are many of them. But make sure you cover yourself and that your intellectual property is not at risk before you go to the US. So unlike other markets where IP concerns are quite high, namely China, the US is less of a concern, but nonetheless, you do need to make sure that you stay protected and keep control of your IP. Planning, really critical. So we are strong believers in spreadsheets, plans, RACI matrices, all sorts of ways to keep things on track. So we go into great detail into planning. We may not always update the plan, but we strongly believe that planning is a core part of all of our business operations. So communicating, you've got a short amount of time to get your points across to your US counterparts and respond, especially on email. You've probably got 12 to 24 hours for response. Otherwise, they might think you've left the business or you aren't interested in their questions. You should break good news very loudly and widely. And you should be careful over breaking bad news and controlling bad news. We do that. We're very cautious about wanting to protect our brands and reputations as businesses. So we will spend more time on the bad news, probably more than we do on promoting the good. So what you see here are three conversations between three different types of nationality. You can probably guess which parts of the world each of these three is. The first one is the US. So someone will speak, then someone will respond, then another person, the next person, the first person will respond, and it's a back and forth with little interruption or speaking over each other. The second is speaking, then a long time gap before the next person speaks, and then another gap to consider these important points before the first person responds. Typically, this will be Japan or parts of Asia. Where it's key that you give the speaker due respect with pauses by showing you're considering the importance of what they've just said. And the last example is Latin America, Southern Europe, where it's very enthusiastic and people talk at the same time very often, and they all talk at once, which is a function of enthusiasm and energy rather than not being interested or trying to undermine the other person. So this is in your slide pack that you'll get after today, but I just thought I'd highlight a couple of these because as someone that's lived in the UK this long, I can attest to the validity of these. So the first one is my favorite, which is by the way, which actually means this is super important. It's usually left to the end of the meeting, but the Americans hear, oh, it's incidental, it's not that important because they said by the way. So there's some other phrases that you may want to check that what you really say is really what you mean in American English, because remember, we are explicit and low context. So recapping for the most part, some top tips. Each of these in turn, firstly, size matters in the US. You'll be expected to have a scale plan. So how you're going to grow the business across the 50 states. You're going to start in one location, but your intention is to grow at scale. So big numbers is what we're looking for typically in your plans. We're looking for big ambition. We're also looking for you to use time as a metric as well, like we do. So having realistic payback periods, for example, is going to be key. If you give your US business anything less than 5 years for it to break even, then you're underestimating how long it takes to build traction there. And it isn't because Americans don't embrace your new and improved idea or product. It's because of the sheer size of the economy and the size of the opportunity, and giving it the right amount of oxygen and the right amount of time to show a return is going to be really important. So just go back and check that in your business plan, you're not expecting a break even for at least, I would say, 5 years. Another key thing is we're very quantitative. So the US business environment and business people focus on numbers. Now, you might say we do that because of our immigration history and the fact that we have come in the US from around the globe. Maybe not all of us initially speaking English during our waves of immigration, but all of us can speak numbers. And so numbers have become the lingua franca in the United States. So being able to be quantitative as well as qualitative is going to be a good idea for you. It'll make you successful. We expect you to solve our problem rather than sort of saying, well, no, we don't do that service or product. Sorry. There is an expectation that you will say, sorry, and I do happen to know another business that can solve your problem, and let me make an introduction. So we expect the brands we use to solve our problem for us and not leave us hanging to solve it ourselves alone. Appearances really count. So how polished your business plan looks, how slick your presentation is, and rehearsed and choreographed if you're pitching to an investor or to a prospective customer or client. Having it rehearsed and looking polished and ready to be successful is really critically important there. I've already mentioned what you say is what you get. Low context, direct, explicit. We don't really talk in multiple meanings. You don't have to read between the lines with US counterparts. I mentioned the win-win game theory, so bear that in mind, really important. We are big fans of experimentation. And again, that's linked to the action orientation, the ready, fire, aim approach that I mentioned earlier. So it's okay to fail. In fact, it's a badge of honor very often because it means we've tried something, we've learned something, and we have now insights for how to make it better next time, which other people may not have. So the people that aren't experimenting and failing aren't learning. And that's really a very important aspect of our view of business. We also really embrace and think it's important to have things that are personalized just for us. So, there's so many permutations of having a Starbucks coffee. It should be the same as well for the menu that you create and offer to your American customers or clients. So let them have more sort of say over the configuration and the solution that you help them assemble. Give us options. We love options. We love making choices and voting on things we really like. And as I mentioned, while we are from around the world and we are the world, that means that the US business culture has evolved and mutated and absorbed people from around the planet. And that's why it's so fundamentally different from the UK. Our immigration history is very different. The expansion across the continental US is very different to how the UK as a country and as an economy has evolved. So just check your assumptions about how similar or not we are. So in the final couple of minutes, I want to suggest some scenarios that you are likely to encounter as you grow your business. So one of them is selling the story of your success. So Americans want to hear that you're ambitious. We want to hear the journey that you as the entrepreneur or the leadership team have taken to get your business from point A to B. And you'll need to turn up the volume on your achievements. You'll need to be very confident because it's a very confident marketplace. We aren't shy. We use numbers. We don't say, well, we're rather good. We say we're amazing, we're award-winning, we're number one. So turn the volume on the dial up to 11 out of 10 when you're thinking about how you promote your business and your successes to the American customers or clients that you're targeting. The second scenario you're likely to encounter is disagreeing with someone. And there's several ways you could do it. You can either be really direct and say, I totally don't agree. Here's why you're wrong. I wouldn't advise doing that. What I would advise doing is taking on the objection of your counterpart and building on it and saying, yes, you have a point. Let me build on that. What if we reframe it from your objection to this solution? So you're focusing on solving a problem rather than highlighting how your American counterpart, where they are wrong. Instead, focus your energy on how you solve the problem and ways your company can help them solve the problem. Keeping in touch. So email and phone calls, Teams, Zoom, whatever platform you like, and persistence is going to be key. So Americans are not the greatest at responding to emails. So learn who the assistant might be. If they have an executive assistant or if they have other ways you can reach them beyond email, fixing time in their diary, going and meeting them in person is the richest way to build and cement these relationships. And back to the personalization and just for me, and knowing what adaptations to make. I mean, this picture in the middle of the 8 bean varieties from the Bush's brand. If you go to any supermarket, you will see this brand. Now, okay, who doesn't like baked beans? Heinz pretty much does 2 varieties, low sugar and regular. In the US, baked beans, however, come in at least these 8 varieties. So the point is, we like choices, we like options. Cheese Whiz, as an example of a product that could only exist in the US, is called a cheese. I'm not sure it would pass UK and EU regulations about what defines a cheese, but it is a spray can of a yellow cheese. And so if you're aware of products like this, you might then think, well, if Americans like that, they might like something that we do that's really different and innovative and not the typical product you'd find in the category. So some troublesome words that you should be careful in using. The one I'll highlight here is to table. So in the UK, when you table the agenda, you want to talk about it now. You put it on the table. In the US, to table means to take it off the table and not to talk about it now. It means the exact opposite. So if you're given a 30-minute meeting and you're spending the first 5 to 10 minutes trying to figure out what you mean by tabling the agenda, you might be in trouble. So to that end, I suggest having a look at this wonderful website, UK Words Not in the US. So maybe go back through your marketing literature and seeing if you're using words like bespoke, which does not exist in American English. No one will know what that means. We really don't use fortnight either, as it doesn't really exist in American English, and plenty of others by looking at that link. So in closing, and before I get to take your questions, there's a lot of ways to learn more. If I've hopefully inspired you, you can certainly get in touch with me directly. You have my email address here. You can get hold of me on LinkedIn. You can go to my website and take the Working with Americans Challenge. You can take my LinkedIn Learning course, Leading International Growth, where you can spend an hour or so and learn more about this topic. You can download chapters from our Working with Americans book. And you can order it, if you like, with this special DBT code of WWA 2025 from the publisher Routledge. So that concludes the slide element of today. Let me stop sharing slides. Let's see, have I stopped sharing slides?
You have stopped sharing slides there, Allyson, very successfully. Thank you very much. And thank you for that presentation. So much of what you've just gone through rings true with me from my, I worked for GE of the US for several years. And so much of what you say has just come flooding back to me. I realized that when they came over and took over our UK company, they brought a hybrid American English or sort of way of working in the company. But very, very interesting. Thank you so much. Now, this is the chance where you get to ask as many questions as you would like. I have... okay. Well, this is a nice, easy one. I can take this. Good morning. Great presentation. Thank you. So that's directed to you, Allyson. Yes, we will be sharing the deck. Naz, you'll get an email later on today. And yes, there we go. Allison's already answered that. You'll have an email. It'll have a link to the slides. It'll have a link to the presentation. And Joe, this was absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Flipping fantastic. Wow, Allyson, take a bow. Lord,
thank you very much, Joe. I'm really pleased. Thank you.
Plaudits there. Now, any questions, please? And I will just remind you, if you want to ask a question verbally, not a problem. You can do so. Just raise your hand and we'll enable your microphone. Whilst you are all thinking and plucking up the... here we go. Well, Joe, I think this might be the same Joe, actually. Joe, I am going to allow your microphone. If you take yourself off mute, then we will be able to hear you. Joe, if you can hear me, just take yourself off mute. That's Joe Proper Golfing. Then you will be able to ask your question. I'm wondering, Joe, if you're using a Mac. Sometimes people have problems on a Mac with taking the microphone off at their end. No idea why. I'm not technical in that respect, but that could explain. We can come back to you, Joe. Don't worry, we'll get back to you. Let's have a look, see if there's any other questions. Okay, so Claire Green here. As a specialist healthcare software provider, there are approximately 30 potential customers across the US. Is a state-by-state approach still the correct approach to take, Allyson?
So I would argue yes, because the regulations around the provision of healthcare, personal healthcare. So in-home care is what I'm, oh, sorry, software. Sorry.
Software, yeah.
Let me reread your question
Healthcare
here,
software.
Claire. Apologies. Right, healthcare software provider. Um, so a state-by-state approach, because you're an online, software business, it probably should be then sectoral rather than geography. However, where you locate geographically is also really important. So each of the 50 states has an economic development office, and they will be wooing you to locate in their state with all sorts of perks. So often you'll be given tax holidays, you'll be given subsidies for office space, you will have them help you recruit American employees. And that's not only even at state level, but even county and cities have economic development offices offering all sorts of incentives to get you to locate in their area, geography. So, because you're in software, you could say you could be geographically agnostic. However, you may want to be in a particular location where the talent is. And on the assumption that you're going to grow your business in the US and you would want software engineers who are proximate, that automatically then probably dictates some obvious cities or states where that talent is currently residing. So I think that probably will drive your decision making more than a manufacturer would.
Lovely, thank you very much. So Jo has come back to us. She's struggling with the microphone, so she's put it in writing. We have an online golfing academy, so I'm thinking that all of this applies to marketing to new members. I'm also thinking that YouTube videos have to be different for talk the US language. Still not able to unmute, but don't worry. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that one, Allyson?
Well, so that's a great question, Jo. I mean, if you have a Scottish accent and your videos are intelligible for Americans who can understand the Scottish accent or British accent, that is an asset because we rate British golfing prowess and the history of golf, obviously, which comes from the British Isles. And so your heritage in this country around golf is an asset. So I would argue that you might want to keep the British accent on the videos and have wonderful scenery as well to that shows these amazing golf courses and locations, which might make Americans want to physically come and get help from you. But it does bolster your credibility. So I think in your case, for your industry, you would want to amplify your heritage because it's an asset in the eyes of the Americans.
Jo has come back while you were talking there, Allyson, just to say not Scottish. Right, lovely. Thank you very much. Thanks for the question there. A bit of a wide-ranging one here. Maybe you could just give a couple of points on this one, Allyson. So it's from Flamhill Developments. Good morning, Allyson. What's the best way to approach US businesses initially? Maybe just one or two tips there, because that's a massive question.
Yeah, I think it depends. I mean, as if you're cold calling, you need to give the American a reason to buy. So what is it about your product or service that's unique versus what they might already be using in the US market? And so I would argue starting with an email, getting the name of the assistant, phoning the assistant after you've sent the email, and making sure, asking for validation or confirmation that your email landed and it's not in a spam filter, trying to fix a call, perhaps going to a trade show and meeting your target customer or client at a show is also a really good idea. So you have a lot of options. I mean, the least expensive is an email and a phone call. And the bigger investment is attending a show and targeting specific decision makers or companies and going and seeing them at their stands at different trade shows around the US.
There we go. So that's answered that one. Get your CRM system cranked up and get sending those emails, and make sure, I suspect, that you follow up on them as well, just to show your absolute interest, your engagement. Question from Ali. I'd like to expand on IP. As a creative agency, some larger brands want to own IP and working files in America. Is this different, and can it be negotiated? I guess it's better to speak with a US lawyer on this, question mark, but at least you can give your thoughts on it, Allyson.
Yeah. So firstly, yes, definitely speak to a US lawyer, and everything is negotiable. So I would first consult the US lawyer about which IP rights you should retain, what IP rights you can release to your client, and the strategy for having the discussion with the client. I think an American qualified lawyer would be really well placed to answer you on that one. That's a little outside my area of expertise, but IP lawyers are numerous. Here in the UK, there are many US qualified IP lawyers, so you don't have to go to the US or speak to someone based in the US necessarily. There are plenty of people here in the UK that you can find. A quick Google search will find you plenty of US law firms in London and across the country, across the UK, where you can find that expertise.
Lovely, thank you. Question here, I've just flipped across to Q&A because there's some questions in here as well. From Rebecca, is it important to US customers for you to have a physical address in the US to trade with them?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. Thanks for asking that one. So because back to the point I raised earlier about knowing the world, we like to think that we can reach you in the US, that you're maybe in roughly in our time zone, and we don't have to call an international number. So believe it or not, many office phone number or office landline phones don't allow people to call outside of the United States. It's amazing. So having a US number that routes over here can be done really inexpensively, and having a US address via a mailboxes, etc., or FedEx or Kinko's or any of these sorts of businesses is also really affordable. It can be a post office box, or it can be a legitimate address that is actually just a mailbox. So I would highly recommend, if you're serious about looking like you are embedded in the US and you're serious about being in the US, then getting an American phone number and an American address, even if it's a virtual American postal address, is a really good idea.
Thank you. Right. A question here from Mary. I noticed there's a lot of American interest in British made brands, especially in the interiors industry. May I know why there is such curiosity? Question mark. I am worried that if I remove my Made in England badge, sorry, something's just flashed up, England badge, I will lose some US sales. I'm not quite sure, Mary, why you would need to remove your sort of Made in the UK, Made in England badge, but what are your feelings on how the States view that?
Yeah, so it's a huge asset to have a Made in England or Made in the UK badge, because you're going into the US on the front foot. Americans really look to the UK and England for high quality heritage goods. And so if you're rather upmarket and you have a brand that's been around for a while, we absolutely love that. It's a quality mark in our minds, and we think very highly of British manufactured goods, even those that aren't in the luxury space. So because the country already has a positive brand with Americans, I would not remove the Made in England badge. I think it's a very helpful thing to keep. The question is, how do you market that heritage? And you have to balance describing that wonderful history you might have as an interiors business or as a brand, with the fact that you're still innovating. So you're doing new, and you're being able to do new on the platform of your history. So look at some of the brands that do this really well in the US, Burberry being one of them. I mean, Burberry's hugely successful in the US for all those same reasons.
Lovely. There we go, Rebecca. So, question from Mary. I noticed. Sorry, wrong question. There we go, Mary. That was, I should say. Katrina, this is an interesting question. We sell automotive security products. We're aiming to work with big name brand dealers. I'm guessing that we would need to personalize our marketing to each dealer depending on their state, i.e., Honda in California and Honda in Texas.
Possibly, I think the dealer would want you to. And they would want to feel that you have put together marketing literature that they can use in their showrooms, that is exclusive to them. So back to the personalization example I gave with the Starbucks coffee. The more you can personalize it and say it's for Southern California Honda dealers, for example, or it's for West Texas Honda dealers, and it's printed on the packaging or the literature that accompanies it, I think that would be a very good idea, because those are different franchises. Even though it's Honda, the franchise license is by region. So I would recommend that customization if you can do it.
Lovely. So Bruce here, Bruce Treble. Bruce is a regular with UK Export Academy. Well done. Your presentation was an excellent template of just how we should present to and work with Americans. Wow, I think people have loved the session today.
Thank you.
Question here. We deliver qualifications globally recognized and looking at breaking into the US market as a provider. Any advice?
Well, highlight the global to the Americans, because that's really impressive. And use the stats and numbers again, back to me saying that we're really quantitative. Use the numbers at your disposal to highlight, we've had X number of learners. We have qualified X number of people in professions A through Z. We have done X hours of qualification programming. So showing your size and scale will definitely impress your US counterparts. So I would highly recommend it. I'm conscious, I think we've got about 1 minute left then, Robin.
We have. I mean, your point then is one that Joe made earlier on about, she put it in the chat, about British companies just don't shout loud enough about how good they are and what they do, their accreditation and all the rest of it. You've just really made that point there. Should we say a final question? A challenge we have is we don't typically need, this is from Daisy, we don't typically need to have meetings in an office, but it appears our US friends prefer a call or meeting in an office. How do we navigate this difference?
Right. So one thing you could do is go to a serviced office and hire a room in a WeWork type of setting. You could meet at your client's or prospect's office. You could meet, perhaps, if you have US lawyers or accountants or any other service provider that's US based and that's in the city where this prospect is, you could use their office. So you actually do have a lot of options to use. You can hire an office pretty affordably if you don't already have access to one through an existing US service provider in that city. But yes, I understand why Americans would want to meet in an office. They just want to see probably your commitment and to see that you work from an office rather than a coffee shop.
Has there been a lot of going back to the office following COVID in America compared to the UK, where we seem to be very reluctant?
It's about the same. Typically, it's a 3-day, 3-day or 2 to 3 day in office.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. Well, we've got lots more thank yous, so that's wonderful. We have reached our time. We've got a minute over. So I guess, Allyson, we go into the second hour of charging now from your point of view. But thank you, Allyson. That was an amazing presentation. Absolutely. And clearly very, very well received by our attendees today. Thank you
Good.
so much. And I hope that you come back and that I get the honor of working with you again. And I'd just like to say to everybody that came along today, thank you. I hope that you've all taken something from today's session. I believe that, we will be sharing the slides, Allyson's slides. There are contact points there. If you want to sort of take conversations offline, then you can do so. You know now exactly the services that Allyson offers. Don't be shy. Shout out if you need help. And don't forget, DBT, we can also help you in many ways. So thank you. Look out for the recording, look out for the slides, and have a great rest of the day, everybody, and take care. Thank you, Allyson.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.